The sun was setting on the wide, dusty plains. Jack Monroe, a cowboy with worn-out boots and a tattered hat, stood alone near his small ranch. The day had been long, and the weight of his failures pressed heavily on his shoulders. Once this land had been full of hope and promise, but now it was barely hanging on. His family had been gone for years, and all he had left was his work and his memories. Jack was a quiet man. He didn't have many friends, and he didn't care much for company. His days were spent mending fences, herding cattle, and making sure his animals had enough to eat. But every night when the moon rose and the land was quiet, he felt the loneliness creeping in again. It had been like this since the death of his family, his parents, his wife, and his young son. The ranch had once been full of life, but now it was just him and the wind. As Jack worked near the fence, hammering in the last of the nails, he heard something strange. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. At first he thought it was just the wind, but then he saw it, an enormous figure almost too big to believe walking toward him. Jack squinted against the sun, trying to make out the shape. When the figure drew closer, Jack's heart skipped a beat. It was a woman, no, a giant. She was taller than any man Jack had ever seen, and her muscles were as big as tree trunks. Her skin was dark, and her hair flowed behind her like a black river. She had the strength of 100 men, and yet she carried herself with grace. Jack stepped back in surprise, unsure of what to do. Was she a traveler? A warrior? Whoever she was no ordinary person. She stopped in front of him, towering over his small frame, and looked down with piercing eyes. "I need a husband, and you need a strong daughter," the giant woman said, her voice deep and clear. There was no introduction, no small talk, just these bold words that hung in the air like a challenge. Jack blinked, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. "Excuse me?" he asked, confused. "Did you say you need a husband?" The woman nodded, her dark eyes never leaving his. "Yes, and you need a strong daughter. I've been watching you, Jack Monroe. You are strong in ways that go beyond what you can see. You need someone like me to help you, and I need someone like you to guide my daughter." Jack rubbed his head, still not sure if he was hearing things right. "I'm not sure what you mean," he said slowly. "I don't even have a family anymore. What could you possibly want with me?" The woman smiled, though it was more like the expression of someone who had faced many battles and had nothing left to prove. "My name is Rowena. I am the last of my kind. My people were wiped out in a great war, a war that destroyed everything we once knew. Now I'm alone, but I have a daughter, Zaria, and she has powers that are beyond anything you can imagine. She needs a father figure, someone to teach her, to guide her, and you, Jack, are that man." Jack's mind raced. Powers? What kind of powers? He was just a cowboy, a man with no real skills other than the ability to work with animals and fix fences. How could he possibly be the right person to help raise a child with extraordinary abilities? Rowena's gaze softened as she noticed the uncertainty in Jack's eyes. "You think you're not capable, but you are. Your strength isn't just in your hands. It's in your heart, in the way you've survived on your own for so long. You've built your life from nothing, and that's something most people can't do. Zaria needs that strength. She needs to learn to be grounded, to understand the value of family, and to control the power she has." Jack stared at her, feeling a strange mix of awe and doubt. He had never met anyone like Rowena. She wasn't just tall or strong. There was something about her that seemed otherworldly, something that made him feel small in comparison. But at the same time, there was a warmth in her eyes that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he could do what she was asking of him. "But I'm not a father," Jack said, his voice quiet. "I don't know anything about raising a child, especially one with powers. I'm not sure I'm the right man for the job." Rowena's face softened even more. "I don't expect you to be a father overnight, but you have something that Zaria needs, stability. She's been through a lot in her short life. I need you to help her understand that strength is not just about power, but about control, responsibility, and love. In return, I can give you what you've lost, a family, a future." Jack looked down at the ground, his mind working through the possibilities. The thought of having a family again, of not being alone, stirred something deep inside him. He hadn't realized how much he missed the idea of family, of having someone to care for, someone to look after him in return. But this was no ordinary family. Zaria's powers, Rowena's past, the dangers they would surely face. It was all so much to take in. "You're asking a lot," Jack said, his voice still uncertain. "But I can't deny that I'm tired of being alone. And if what you say is true, maybe I can help her." "Help both of you?" Rowena nodded. "I believe you can. You're not just a cowboy, Jack. You have a spirit that's rare, and it's what Zaria needs. I need you to trust me, and in return I'll help you build a life here. You won't have to struggle anymore. Together we can create something strong, something that will last." Jack took a deep breath and looked up at Rowena. The sun had set completely now, and the stars began to twinkle in the sky. The land was quiet, but Jack felt something stirring within him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "I'll give it a try, but I'm not promising anything. I don't know what I'm doing." Rowena smiled again, this time with more warmth. "That's all I'm asking for. Let's take it one step at a time." As Rowena turned and began to walk away, Jack couldn't help but follow her. The idea of a new life, a new family, felt impossible and exciting at the same time. But as he walked beside her, he realized something. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as lost as he thought. There was still a chance to build something meaningful, even if it wasn't the life he had once dreamed of. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, and the strange powers of Zaria would surely cause trouble. But for the first time in a long time, Jack felt a spark of hope. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to try. Jack woke early the next morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. The land was quiet, save for the sounds of birds and the rustling of wind through the dry grass. He had spent the night thinking about what Rowena had said. It felt like a dream, something too strange to be real. But as he stepped out of his small house and onto the porch, he saw her, Rowena, standing by the barn, her figure towering against the morning sky. She was waiting for him. Jack took a deep breath. This was real. He had agreed to help her, to take on the responsibility of guiding her daughter Zaria, and now he had to make it work. But the more he thought about it, the more nervous he became. He had never raised a child, especially not one with strange, possibly dangerous powers. How could he teach her anything? Rowena turned when she heard him approaching. Her face was calm, but there was a spark in her eyes. "Good morning," she said, her voice strong and steady. "Morning," Jack replied, scratching his head. "I guess we should get started." Rowena nodded. "Yes, we have much to do. Zaria needs to be trained, and I need your help to show her the way." Jack was unsure of what exactly that meant, but he nodded. "All right, what do you want me to do first?" Rowena's eyes softened. "You'll start by teaching her how to control her emotions. Her powers are tied to her feelings. When she's angry or scared, they get stronger and harder to manage. You must help her learn to stay calm." Jack wasn't sure how to teach someone to control their emotions, but he knew one thing. He would try his best. "Okay, I'll do my best." Just as they began walking toward the barn, the sound of footsteps caught their attention. A young girl, no older than 12, stepped out from behind the barn. Zaria. She was small for her age, but the way she moved was different, graceful, almost like she was floating rather than walking. Her eyes were deep and mysterious, and her long black hair moved in the wind as if it had a life of its own. "Morning, Zaria," Jack said, trying to sound friendly. Zaria didn't answer at first. She just stared at him with those intense eyes as if she was measuring him. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Are you going to teach me how to be like you?" Jack blinked in surprise. "Like me?" "You're strong," Zaria said quietly. "I can tell. You've been alone, but you've survived. I want to be strong too." Jack didn't know how to respond. How could he explain to this child that he didn't feel strong, that he was just trying to survive himself? Instead, he just smiled and nodded. "I'll help you, Zaria. We'll figure it out together." Rowena stepped forward, her voice commanding. "Zaria, you must learn to control your emotions first. It's the only way to understand your power." Zaria looked down at her hands, her fingers curling into fists. "I don't know if I can do it," she said softly. "What if I hurt someone? I've hurt people before when I couldn't control it." Rowena's expression softened. "Zaria, you are not a danger. Your power comes from within, but it must be controlled. Jack will help you learn to keep it in check. You have the strength, but you need to learn discipline." Jack could see the fear in Zaria's eyes. She was afraid of her own power, afraid of what might happen if she lost control. He knew that fear all too well. For years he had feared his own weakness, his inability to protect those he loved. Now it seemed he had a chance to face that fear head-on, to help someone else learn what he had struggled to understand. "Let's start slow," Jack said, offering a reassuring smile. "We'll take it one step at a time." The days that followed were long and challenging. Jack began by teaching Zaria simple exercises, ways to focus her mind and calm her emotions. They practiced breathing techniques, meditation, and even physical training. Zaria wasn't an easy student. She was strong-willed and often frustrated by her inability to control her powers. There were moments when Jack thought she might give up, but Rowena's steady presence kept them both going. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Jack and Zaria were practicing near the river. Zaria had managed to calm her breathing, but there was still a lot of work to do. Jack could see the frustration in her eyes. "I can't do it," Zaria said, her voice tight with emotion. "I can't control it. Every time I try, I get angry, and then it just gets worse." Jack paused, watching her. "You're not alone in this, Zaria. We all have things that make us angry or scared or frustrated. The trick isn't to pretend those feelings don't exist, it's to control them before they control you." Zaria turned toward him, her eyes wide. "How do you know what that's like?" Jack looked away for a moment, then back at her. "Because I've been where you are. I've been afraid of my own weaknesses, afraid of what I could lose if I didn't get stronger, but you don't have to face it alone. I'm here to help you, and so is Rowena." Zaria seemed to think about this for a moment, then slowly she nodded. "I'll try again." That evening, after their practice, the three of them sat around a fire. Rowena cooked a simple meal while Jack and Zaria shared stories. Jack had learned that Rowena's people had once been great warriors, known for their strength and wisdom. But now they were gone, wiped out in a terrible war. Rowena was the last of her kind, and she carried the weight of that loss with her every day. Jack also learned more about Zaria's powers. They were tied to her emotions, yes, but they were also ancient, powerful forces that could be both a gift and a curse. Rowena had always been able to control her own power, but she had never been able to teach Zaria the same way. That was why she had come to Jack, to find someone who could help her daughter before it was too late. Over the next few weeks, Jack's bond with Zaria grew stronger. He saw the young girl's progress, how she was learning to control her emotions and how her powers were beginning to settle. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying, and that was enough. One evening, as they stood watching the sunset, Rowena spoke quietly, her voice filled with pride. "You've done well, Jack. Zaria is learning, and I see the change in her. You've helped her more than you know." Jack smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He had started this journey unsure of himself, but now he felt like he was part of something important. He had helped Zaria, but in a way she had also helped him. He wasn't the same man he had been when Rowena first came to him. He had found a purpose, a new family to protect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. But with Rowena by his side and Zaria learning to control her power, Jack finally felt like he was where he was meant to be. The road ahead was long, but together they would face it one step at a time.